Hello everyone, and welcome back to my second video on AutoCAD Plant 3D. As I mentioned in the previous video, this one will cover some of the things I found particularly unintuitive about AutoCAD Plant 3D. Most importantly, adding in your custom symbols for probably equipment and unit ops that AutoCAD doesn't come with, because in all likelihood your design project has some things that just it doesn't have. But I'll also be covering a couple other things like off-page connectors for when you have more than one P&ID and you need to connect them. I'll do a brief demo on how the instrumentation and control loops might work if you're drawing them out. And I'll also go over printing really quick because the P&IDs that you're making are done on A1 paper, which is massive, and shrinking it down doesn't always look quite right with the line types. You have to scale it or at least I found a way to scale it so that it looks okay. So let's get started. To open up your old project, to do that, sometimes it'll come up in here, but if you can't find it, go to Open, and then navigate to your folder wherever you saved it. I saved mine on the desktop. Sometimes it'll open automatically for you, and then open the project XML file. Great, so you can see this is our old project. This is the heat exchanger we did in the last video. Everything's saved correctly. So what I want to do in this video is I want to import a furnace that I had to draw for my design project, but I need to do it on a new P&ID. You can imagine that later on, maybe I have more unit ops in here that'll come in, but there's not enough space. I need to put it on a new page. So I already drew that, and as I said in the last video, I'm not going to be teaching you guys how to draw with AutoCAD. There's many tutorials for that. But you can just open regular drawings in Plant 3D. So this is my regular drawing here. This is the furnace that I drew, or will come in the top here, spend a whole bunch of time in here, and then come out the bottom. And then reducing gas, natural gas, will come in here and come out the top over here. So I want to put this into P&ID. So first, let's create the new P&ID that it's going to go in. We can call it furnace. We'll call it furnace 2. We'll call it whatever you want, really. I'm not going to bother changing the properties or anything. You've already seen that. But here's my new P&ID. Let's go back to my drawing. I did name them the same thing by accident. And the first thing that we need to do is turn this into an AutoCAD block. So this is vanilla AutoCAD stuff for now. Let's open up our workspace and go to drafting and annotation. This will probably look more familiar to anyone who's used AutoCAD before. We need to make a new block. So we will select all the content that we need. And in the block menu, create a new one. Let's call this something different, my furnace maybe. I like to pick a base point. You don't technically have to, but just pick something that it's the base point. It's where the image will start from. I will allow exploding, scale uniformly. Messing with the units of your drawing can change how big it is when you import it into your P&ID. Sometimes if you do it a specific way, it can come in ginormous or really small, but they're super easy to scale, and I'll give you a little example of that too. So this is all we need to do for that. Say OK. Now you can see if we look at our blocks, we have our block here, and you can just kind of paste it in however you need. That's all we need to do here. Make sure you save it. So do Control S or save up here. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that star goes away. It means it's saved. Let's go back to our P&ID and open up our proper workspace again. Perfect. If you want to get the old image back, just like that. Open up Project Manager, Project Setup. This is a big menu with lots and lots of settings. You don't need to mess with most of them. It takes a minute to load. So yeah, you can see there's a couple general settings here. This is that address that we didn't fill in last time. There's a bunch of different things. You can look through it if you need. But you want to go to your P&ID settings, your class definitions. These are your items that end up in the tool palette. Engineering items, since we're adding in equipment, it's an engineering item and it's also equipment, so I'm going to put it in here. And normally I would not and since I am putting in a furnace, I could put it in here if I wanted to, but I wouldn't recommend messing with the default AutoCAD tools and things. I would recommend making a custom equipment selection. I'll show you how to add one of these. This is in a practice run. So to add a new selection here, say new, I recommend making just your own that just says custom equipment. Just put it all in there. Put all your stuff in there. Class name needs to be one word with no spaces, but the display name can have spaces if you want. It's really just an aesthetic thing. And then in this one, we're going to make a new class for this, and this will be the shaft furnace. That's the name. That's the kind of furnace from my design project. Again, you can add a space if you want. Great. Now we need to add a symbol for our furnace here. So we'll go to Add Symbols, and you'll need to select the drawing that your block is in. So mine's just on the desktop. This is the file we were working in. Notice I saved everything so it comes up properly. Say OK. And there's our available block, my furnace. So we'll add that. Say Next. Name it whatever you want. I'll just name it the same thing again, my furnace. Now, there are a couple settings here that you'll probably want to change. You'll want to set the layer to be equipment, because that's what it is. It's not an instrument line or it's nothing else. It's equipment, so probably set it to that. Set your color to be by layer, so that way it'll line up with the correct green color that you saw in here. And you don't need to change any of the other line weight stuff. If you know more about AutoCAD, you can get into that. The only other thing that you want to look for is this is a tagged component, so we'll want to prompt for a tag during component creation. This is when we put in the heat exchanger and it offered us like W001. That menu will come up if you select prompt. So we'll say finish. Great, there's our furnace. There's only one more thing we need to do to this symbol. We go to Edit Block, and it'll take a minute to open. Everything takes a minute to open. So now we're in the block editing menu. We need to tell AutoCAD where we want to connect pipes to our block here. So as I said before, I have one coming in through here and then coming out the bottom, and I have another line coming in through the middle here and out closer to the top. So get out some annotative points. This palette should come up easy here, but it's also up to here. And I want to put one right here. Get another one down in the middle on the bottom. If you're having trouble selecting a midpoint or something like that, this is another basic AutoCAD thing, but you can come in here and select the snap settings that you want. So I'm going to select midpoint for this next one. Come in for the point here. You can see now I snapped to the midpoint, which is very lovely. Another one coming in here, and another one coming out here. Now, you need to rename these. Attachment point and then a number. 1. And then attachment point 2. Attachment point 3. And attachment point 4. The order with which you do these has a little bit of effect. AutoCAD, when it's doing its validation thing, that is a little complicated and you may not end up using, tries to direct, especially if they're headed in like one direction, like one is going straight down into 2, it tries to connect like the pipeline coming in from 1 to 2, and then 3 to 4, and 5 to 6, and so on. Doesn't always work out, but if you can just put them in the correct directions like that, it can just help AutoCAD out a little bit. That's all we need to do. Make sure you do name them these. Otherwise, you won't get that circle with the crosshair connection point for your block. So close and save. we're done. So now you can say OK. This will save your changes. If you press cancel, it will not save anything you did. And now it'll open back up to our furnace too. Oh, forgot one thing. So the last thing we need to do is add it to our tool palette, so that way we can actually put it into our drawing. So very easy to do. There's a button, add to tool palette, you're done. So right now it did go into my line section. Don't worry about that. Every time you close AutoCAD and open it up again, this will get reset. I have not found a way to save it, on the McGill computers at least. So just let it be wherever you need just to put it. It's going to get deleted and reset later. But it will save on your drawing. Don't worry about that. It's just on the tool palette. Great. So now remember, don't click and drag, just click one. See, it actually came out to a nice size here, but in the case that it doesn't, try and line it up with one of the lines. See here, now we're assigning a tag. We can set it to number 1. Need to pick a type. Technically it is a furnace, so I'll label it D. We can add an equipment tag. They typically go at the top. Now mine came out to a nice size, but in the case it doesn't, it's very easy to fix. It's the scale command, just like in regular AutoCAD. Pick a scale point, and now you can change how big or small you want it to be. I might want it to be a little bit smaller. Great. There's my furnace. We can save it. And now you can see if I try to add some pipelines to it, I will turn off this. If I need to add a pipeline, perfect. My connection point comes up right where I told it to. I can reverse this flow so it's going the right way. I can have another pipeline coming at the bottom. See, there's the connection point right where I asked it to be. And you can see it's not coming up anywhere where I asked it not to, where I didn't put in the connection point. But there is one here, and there's another one here. Great. Now, that's pretty much all you need to know about making your own custom symbols. It's a bunch of steps, but none of the steps are very hard. The hardest part would really just be drawing your shape. But yeah, okay. Now, I want to turn this pipeline, I want this pipeline to be the natural gas line that we made in our last heat exchanger in our previous video. So to do that, I need to use off-page connectors to tell this line that it's the same as the line in my furnace PNID. So to do that, go to non-engineering items in your connectors. This is an off-page connector. Put one down. I find it's easiest to put it down just a little bit before your line. Then you can use, this is where this is the connection point of a pipeline. Click it, then just drag it as far as you need to go. Look for that node, click it, and now you can see it's connected to this off-page connector, and this off-page connector doesn't know where to go. That's what that symbol's for. So let's go put one with our furnace as well. Might have to save before so it recognizes it. We'll go to our furnace as well. Go to our connectors, same thing. I'll drop it down just before and then draw our connector to it. Say enter. Should be connected. It's not. That's what we get for making a custom line. It's a little off center. You can play with that if you need to. We'll try and connect it again. There's our node. Say enter. There. So it's a little off askew, but that's fine for the demo. I would clean that up a little bit if I were actually presenting this to my design leader. But you can see this one too also doesn't know where to go. So we'll right click on it, go to off-page connector. This menu comes up. Connect. And you can see there's two options for it to connect to. Itself, that doesn't work, but for heat exchanger number 1. So we'll select this one. There's only currently one off-page connector it could connect to, but if you had more, there would be a list of them. Say OK. That's it. they're connected. Now they're technically the same line, and you can go over, if you look over here too, it says it's right. So now, if we want to assign a tag to this, everything's there for us. It remembers this is the same pipeline. So we'll assign our tag. We're done. And now say I need, oh shoot, I screwed up. This is actually 20 inches, extra biggin. I don't need to assign a new tagline, I'll just escape out of that. But now this pipeline's 20 inches, and this one's still 10. If I right click on our off-page connector and view the connection, you can see it tells us, oh, there's a bit of an error. Not sure how to deal with that. You can either accept the change here, or you can copy it, just say accept. Yeah, you can just accept the change there, and it'll fix itself. Say OK, and then your tag should update. Ta-da! Not too challenging. That's off-page connectors. They're not super challenging, but they are very useful. Next up, last thing I wanted to show you was a little bit of a demo on control and instrumentation. So that's most of the stuff you'll find in instruments and valves. So the easiest way to do that is give you a real simple explanation of what a control loop over a heat exchanger might look like. So we'll say that this is the tube side, it's getting heated up. So we want the outlet temperature of my natural gas controlled by the shell side. Maybe this is hot steam coming through. So we want the flow rate of the steam to be controlled by the outlet temperature of our natural gas line 2 here. So if it gets hotter, we need less steam. If it's not hot enough, add more. So to do that, you need a control valve. And there's a bunch of ones that you can choose from. I'm going to go with the general one. The diaphragm actuator is the one that you're most familiar with. It's that little mushroom cap. Just plop it down right there. You can see it rotates automatically for you. And this is its name. So we're in area 1. This is loop number 1. I like to add zeros. Oh, we already just assigned a tag. Assign. Oh, we just assigned a tag, so we can escape out of that. This yellow is really gross. If you want to change that, you can go into layer properties. You're in your instruments line. Just click on this. I always went with this orange color. It's much nicer. You can see it changes for you. But you can also, if you want a nicer view, the white is too bright for you. If you just hover over this and select model, you'll get a nice dark view of your P&ID. So we have our control valve here, and this control valve needs to be controlled by a temperature reader coming out of this line. So I'll put down my temperature control. It'll be a discrete instrument. Put it somewhere there's enough space. That's good. This is also in area 1. This is a temperature transducer, or temperature transmitter. It's reading. This is again loop number 001. Don't need an oval tag for this. Say assign. There she is. We'll connect it with the pipeline, because technically this would be in the pipeline. Takes a minute to load. There we go. And now I'll connect this control valve to the transmitter with an electrical signal. This is the electrical line. Up like this. Click again, and then connect. Now you can see this loop is connected. They all highlight if you hover over it. And now to go from a temperature transmitter to a control valve, we would need a temperature transmitter. So that's very easy to add. Add one right here. You can see most of this gets saved for you already, but this is a temperature transmitter, or transducer, sorry. Too many T words. And then this would go to a flow controller. There, you're done. It's a real simple control loop. Maybe you'd have other things, like you'd have an alarm or an indicator if need be. Doesn't really matter, but that's just a really simple overview of how your control instrumentation works. You just drop things right on the line, and you can see, like, if I need to move this line around later, things will come with it. This line, most lines, they all know. They're all connected. If you need more space, it's pretty easy to add space. There's a bunch of extra symbols, like you can add gaps if it's traveling across equipment on your page. There's a bunch of stuff you can do to make it pretty helpful and easy for you. So we'll save that. Only thing left to do now is, say we want to print our very, very pretty P&ID. There's our P&ID. To print it, the best way that I've found to print is to plot a single sheet. You can mess around with this and maybe you'll find a better way to do it than I did, but I always went to Microsoft Print to PDF. It's going to tell you can't print A1 paper. So I just leave it at letter, and I set the scale to 3, 1 to 3. I do not plot line weights, because that can end up making these lines super, super small. And that's it. I'll say OK. I'll save this as maybe furnace demo. Say OK. Great. And now it's on our desktop. We can give it a look. It's going to open an edge. Yeah, whatever. And there's our demo. It's a little cropped. You can crop it down if you need to. But this is an okay version I've found that maintains some decent line weight when you need to put it into something like a Word document. It's got everything saved for you. It is a vectorized, so as you zoom in, it'll maintain some high resolution for you. But that's the best way that I've found to print these giant pieces of paper into a smaller piece of paper. And that is about it for this demo. So any other problems that you have, you can try looking them up on AutoCAD's website. They have a fairly good amount of documentation, but there's nothing else that's super, super complicated that you might want to mess with that's like really hard to figure out. That's about it. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.